This is Baboo. He's a level 19 Tabaxi Ranger, and he's part of a campaign that me and my friends have been playing now for 4.5 years in Dungeons & Dragons. Baboo is a portal-slinging, longbow-wielding menace. He steals, he backflips, he has a green $ tattoo on his forehead for some reason, and perhaps most importantly, for the purposes of this video, he is very complicated to play. This is from only the second campaign I ever started playing. I've played lots of one-shots and other campaigns since, but this one's been going on real long, hence why we've managed to reach level 19. The schedule planning is now really committed. It's safe to say we're all pretty locked into this campaign, and I thought it would be fun to share with you one of the interesting things that I've made during this campaign, which is the Babook. D&D Beyond is a brilliant tool, and there are tons of really good online tools to make D&D playing accessible, and if it weren't for those tools I wouldn't be playing D&D right now. But once I got more invested, I started to yearn for a physical object to attach myself to and other more kind of tactile things to do. Once we started rolling dice especially, it became impossible to interact with things on a screen. I really wanted something to turn and to look at and to feel. So I looked at some online stores, Etsy and Amazon and other places, and found all the pieces and components to try and put together this book. And for about 2 years now, it's been my reference, my character sheet, my guide, and a kind of log of Baboo's progression. I think when I started using this, he was probably around level 10, level 11, and it started to get quite difficult to keep track of things. I do also use another tool for keeping track of resources in combat, and hit points and spell slots and things like that, but this serves as everything else. So without further ado, let's just go through it, and more things about Baboo and his adventures will kind of become illuminated along the way. So to start things off, this is a brilliant piece of art, one of my favourites in here, by Mikey Quigg, so shout out to him. He not only made an artwork for Baboo, but also for each of the other 3 characters in our campaign, and the brief was to make line art so that it could be etched onto a DM screen and gifted to our DM after his several years of love and devotion to our campaign and our enjoyment. So he absolutely loved that. It was a really nice gift, and we enjoy seeing it now every week.
Oh my god! One poor artist did you commission to make a $ sign on a fucking...
This is, yeah, just one of those pieces of art. And you can see as well the coloured version that I did on paint, which actually looks quite good. So I'm quite happy with that. So this is a really nice journal by Undercover, and it just looks wonderful. It's sort of green leather with metal studs. It really sort of matches Baboo's ranger aesthetic and his sort of early life. I also got these custom tabs made with sort of headings on them, also in green and gold, just to make it easier to flick between the many parts of the book. So if I need to be flicking between my actions and my spells or my core stats, I can do that very simply. It's impossible to fit all of the relevant information onto one sheet once you reach this kind of level in D&D, and when it comes to combat, I'm usually referring to the same 1 or 2 pages anyway, plus my tablet. So here are the core stats for Baboo, and one important thing to note about this book is that everything is written on this craft paper, which is hole punched, and I swear by these friction pens that allow you to write and rub out in pen. If you haven't used one of these before, get some now. They will change your life. I can't believe I was at the ripe old age of 27 before I realised just how much of a game changer these pens would be. Fantastic for making a modifying character sheet that can change with time, by the session, by the week, by the month, and for also just undoing any little mistakes that you've had. There's a lot of colour coding in this book, and it's not all entirely consistent, so the eagle-eyed amongst you can maybe point out some of those inconsistencies, but or you could just not be a nerd. So yeah, up to you. I was very inspired by a video by Ginny D, a very popular YouTuber and D&D content creator, and just how beautiful she managed to make her book look. I really put a lot of effort into this one, this core stats page, because I knew I'd be looking at it a fair bit. Don't get your hopes up about how beautiful the whole book would look. This is really nice. We've got art here, we've got colours here, and the rest becomes a little bit more functional as we go along. For instance, the next page is just a list of proficiencies, language, other bits and characteristics. You know, it's not anything too special. But then we get into the actions tab, and this is where things start to get really heavy. As you can see, there are a lot of things that Baboo can do at any given moment. He is a Horizon Walker Ranger with a dip in Sorcerer now at his 18th and 19th levels, and he's got a ton of custom feats, and he plays with portals. There's all sorts of crap going on here, and I need it visible in one place at one time. So while I did have at one point a handwritten version of this, it got to the point where my writing was too large, so I've gone to size 9 font instead and crammed it all onto this beautiful little spread. And I can colour code things more accurately as well. But I made this sheet at level 17 and I've had to add to it since, so you can see some extra handwritten bits here and there. Ultimately, it is the page that I have open during combat, and I don't know where I would be without this. If you play a complex character and you're hitting, you know, level 7, level 8, you're starting to feel like, oh, I don't know what I should be doing at any given moment, I would urge you to just have a list of all your abilities, quick references, things like the range, the effects, just condensed into half a sentence, and you'll find yourself playing a lot more streamlined. I was a real problem around the table for taking very long over my turn at a point where I had too many options and I'll get decision paralysis about how to optimally play. I'm one of those types of players, and doing this sped up my turns drastically. An extension of that is that at about level 17, I decided to write down a load of stuff about Baboo. I found myself for about a week or so completely obsessed with the combo theory of Baboo, and I just thought I have to get all of these thoughts down on paper so that at some point I can read them and unforget them. So every now and then, maybe before combat, I have a skim through this page just to remind myself what it is that Baboo actually does and how he can do it, as though it wasn't already imprinted in my brain anyway. But I'm a forgetful person. And then here I've got some example turns. These are quite useful occasionally if I just think, okay, we've got a quick fight going on, what do I need to do? Am I attacking? Am I doing AoE? Am I playing defensive? What do I need to do? And this just gives me some handy quick references where I can think, okay, I'll take my turn in this manner. One thing that might stand out to you is this column here, action, TP action, bonus action, and extras. The TP action is something that Baboo has acquired recently through a kind of plot-driven development of his character. He can take an extra action as long as it involves teleporting, which is mint. Very fun to play around with this guy. Maybe it's worth talking a little bit about what Baboo does in battle. He is mostly a support. We have a party of 2 fighters, a druid, and Baboo is the ranger, so he's often fighting from distance and flinging allies about the battlefield to really help them out and get them out of danger, as well as keeping himself alive with some useful bits of trickery like Nature's Veil and other reactions that he's managed to pick up throughout his adventures and his crafting. So he really is just this kind of tricksy jack of all trades support. Nuke is my shorthand for fire everything, and we've had some sessions where it's one-shot a big boss. We've had some sessions where it falls flat on its face. But thanks to it, Baboo currently holds the record for the most damage in a single hit with 247, which is gnarly. And it was on a big red ancient dragon, so couldn't have picked a better time for that. Here we have the spell section, and look at that, Baboo's got cantrips now. That's why this page is mostly blank, because it wasn't here before. And I had to put cantrips before all of the other spells that he already had. So that's what's going on there. This section starts out with just a list of all the spells available to Baboo. Sometimes it's useful to have that, but most of the time I'm flicking into this section to have a look at these spell cards. Most of these are custom made. You'll see that there are also littered amongst them the official D&D Ranger spell cards, I decided at one point I'd just buy the Ranger spell cards, and had a look at them and thought, hey, this would be really useful, but they don't have all of the spells that Baboo has, because he's got ones from his items, and ones from his subclass, and ones from other things. So I decided to start making my own, and I found a very useful website called hardcodex.ru, and it just has a really nice, easy to use generator for all of the existing spells in D&D. You can customize the colors. It's a little bit difficult to customize the text, but you dive into a PDF editor and it's easy enough to do that as well. So I've just made a bunch of these cards, and they're really useful for going in and checking the exact wording of all of the different spells. Also quite fun on every level up to be able to print out and cut up all of these little spells and just slot them right in. These are really nifty little kind of wallets that I use, and yeah, it's quite a good solution for the spells. I wouldn't advise doing something like this inside your main book if you're a full caster, because you'll have the entire spell list to choose from up to whatever level you can do. But if you're a half caster like Baboo and you're only getting to swap a couple of spells in and out every single level, then you're really I'm really locked into what I do. So it's a good kind of investment to keep track of all the ones that you have. The fourth tab in this book is the features tab, and back here we've got a list of all of the features that Baboo has acquired during his time and throughout his level ups. It's all color coded, so we have the brown tabs for any ranger feats, yellow is any tabaxi racial traits, we have the reds and greys down here for any other feats that come along, and then we've got some subclass things as well. So he's a horizon walker, that's represented in pink, and then planar soul is just clockwork soul from the sorcerer list, but we decided to reflavor it a little bit, and that comes in blue. There's not much to talk about here without going really in depth about Baboo, and the more important thing I want to highlight is the custom feats that have come up during the course of this campaign. Not once has Baboo taken an ASI at 4th, 8th, 12th or 16th level. He's always gone for a feat. At level 4, he took actor because he had a hat of disguise and wanted to build into social. So yeah, whenever I complain about being underpowered, my DM always reminds me of that fact. And then from that point on, we started making custom feats to really lean into the Horizon Walker. Horizon Walker is an interesting subclass in Ranger because it's really fun thematically, but it doesn't feel like it quite does what it sets out to do. So we kind of supplemented these with some extra feats as we went along, and those have really helped to kind of inject a lot of originality and excitement into Baboo's playstyle. Me and my DM started like workshopping some really cool ideas about what you could do with this, and some of the custom feats we came up with were quite exciting. My favourite is planar jumper, which we made at level 12, and this allows any teleport that Baboo makes or does to leave behind a trail of planar particles, and any enemy that is within those trails takes the maximum possible damage when they're targeted with planar warrior, which is 2d8, so 16. It means that it's really fun to kind of set up a move and plan ahead and just pull off these really big shots in the middle of combat while moving teammates around and still playing a supportive role, and it just kind of really bumped him up a notch. It was really fun when we kind of came up with this idea, and we ran with that even further. We started working with being able to banish enemies that are within that trail at the cost of certain resources. It's just been really fun to kind of play around with making new mechanics for D&D. The other standout thing in this features section is what we called the Omnix Facultatem. This was essentially Baboo's training in learning how to manipulate extra dimensional portals, and throughout the campaign he's been trying to kind of close them and repair boundaries and do all sorts of things that are kind of keeping the world safe, and each time he has done that he's gained a level in this Omnix Facultatem, to the point where now he has a lot more control over these things and can do things like cast scatter and teleport and spells that are far beyond his ability, as well as closing portals more reliably and having that extra teleport action on his turn. So the training has really paid off, and it's been rewarded with these cool custom feats. It's been cool to kind of feel rewarded for advancing the plot and doing interesting things in this world, and I think that any DM or any campaign that doesn't do this sort of thing is really missing a trick, because it's just been a great experience to feel like there's genuine character growth and it's not just linked to sort of arbitrary XP or, you know, slaying a big fat enemy or whatever. Like, this has been like Baboo's real progression throughout the whole of sample text, which I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but the campaign is called Sample Text. I don't know why. I can't remember. It was so long ago. And then last but not least, we've got the sorcerer features in here as well. This was a late dip in level 18. You really start to lose the oomph when it comes to the final few levels of Ranger. The game just outpaces you. So I thought it was a good dip, and we've been kind of rushed through the last couple of levels with some really big plot developments that we've kind of aced. And it's meant that we're suddenly level 19, and there's actually a distinct possibility that we reach level 20 and I get meta magic, which would be really neat for Baboo to be able to do, say, twinned haste on his party, or subtly cast silence or something like that. There's all sorts of trickery that he can do, and I haven't even planned that out yet, but if we hit level 20, then that's going to be a huge buff for Baboo. And now the last section in this book is the equipment, and I want to start by looking at just this amazing piece of art by the wonderful sirindoodles. She did an excellent job on this. This is Riftweaver. It is a quiver that Baboo created using a Well of Many Worlds, which we were initially tasked with repairing, but we kind of just decided to make a quiver out of it instead. The guy who gave it to us was pretty pissed off when he found out. It's been put to good use though, and honestly our DM went absolutely ham with this one. Like, this is an entire 2 pages of stuff that this quiver can do, and it makes sense that it's powerful. This was crafted from an existing very powerful item that we were in the process of upgrading and repairing, and it had to be created through a crazy fail ritual, which was the content for about 3 or 4 sessions of Baboo's life several months ago. So the reward was just, and there's so many things on here that it hasn't even gotten a chance to do yet. One of my favorite things about it is this transplanar strike that I get once per short rest. It fires an arrow that draws on the energy from a particular plane, but it's random. So if I roll a 1 to 6, it will just deal big damage as it imbues itself with energy from the material plane. It can do all sorts of wonderful things if it's drawn an arrow from the Feywild or the Shadowfell. I haven't yet seen it draw an arrow from the Hells. And last but not least, the Astral Sea, which I don't know what it does. I don't even know if our DM knows what it does at this point. He's just put a question mark there. So, yeah. Really hoping I'll roll a 20 on this at some point. And then the rest of this tab is just the main gear, the equipment that he's got. This wonderful bow, Inmara Inamorata of the Imagineer, equipped with a whistling bowstring as well. I believe these are both completely custom items that our DM made. The whistling bowstring is something that we got in the very first session, and it fires force arrows and uses a gale force shot, which knocks people down and does additional damage and grants advantage once per short rest. So that was a nice little kind of powerful item very early in the campaign, and it's stuck with me ever since, and it remains a part of one of Baboo's biggest moves as well. So that's been really cool to carry that all the way through. I won't go through the rest in too much detail because most of these are custom items. They're homebrewed by our DM. The art here is mostly just stuff that I found online and maybe recolored. Yeah, there's not much to them really. They're just there to kind of pretty up the book a little bit. And then we have all our coin and the hoard of random stuff that has been acquired. Baboo is the proud owner of a bag of holding, or was until very recently when he decided to create a bag of holding and handy haversack bomb, which was a long time coming. We're at session 159 and it might just have saved the world for a day or so. Check back in with me in a few weeks. I may be a puddle of goo, both Baboo and myself. Depends how the apocalypse goes, basically. And that's pretty much it for the book. The whole thing has been a labour of love. It's been something that's taken me a long time to make. It's not the only thing I use. Of course, I have my trusty dice. We've got my journal that I keep records of everything that's happened. I tend to sort of fill in notes during the session and then update and fill in the gaps afterwards when it's fresh in my mind. Things in there are color coded as well for reference, just to make things easier for me. And then I have my tablet, which is usually what I just have this up on, and this is Baboo's combat tracker. It is purely here to keep me from losing my mind using D&D Beyond. It was very frustrating having to click around and scroll and search for all the little boxes I needed to tick to say I'd use this thing. So I decided to just compile them all into one place, along with my health and a handy list of all my abilities, just so that it's on the screen as well. I've got it in a few places at once, but this thing's quite nice. At the moment, it's just a Google sheet with some conditional formatting and some nice colouring and font choices. If anyone has any sort of better options for doing something like this that's quite malleable and adaptable and easily usable on a tablet, then let me know in the comments, because I would be really glad if I could make my next character combat tracker look and feel even better than this. But for the moment, this has served its purpose for well over like 2 or 3 years now, and it is my anchor. I would be nowhere without this particular bit, but it's nowhere near as pretty as the book, so I don't think it deserves its own video. Okay, so that is it. I hope you've enjoyed this exploration of the Babook. Maybe it's given you some ideas about what you could do in your D&D games. I took a lot of inspiration from Ginny D's character book, as I mentioned. So if you end up making something similar, come let me know, let her know. It's really just very fun to make these. I really just can't wait to get started on another character that I can become really invested in and make a whole new one of these that will probably be a lot better, and I won't make the same mistakes that I made while making this one, and there were lots. If you like this video, please let me know, and maybe I'll make more D&D content in the future. I know this is step outside the usual for this channel, but I figured, you know, we're all nerds here. I wanted to just show off something I've been nerdy about. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.